invited him to join me on this Zoom session. Tuesday night service at his church, Life Tabernacle, was recently attended by law enforcement. They weren't there to worship. They were there because they said he violated an emergency order mandated by Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards, banning public or private gatherings of more than 50 people during the coronavirus pandemic. Now, Pastor Tony admittedly had over 1,100 people at his Sunday service. That's over 22 times the amount of people allowed under the recent emergency order. Then he followed up with smaller service on a few days later where 305 people attended. That's a little over 6 times the amount of people allowed by the governor's edict. So, Pastor Tony, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Dr. Phil.
Well, this is clearly a difficult situation for everybody, and I can imagine for you wanting to minister to your flock and bring comfort to them and deliver the message to them. This creates a real problem because a lot of these people rely on this every week and maybe sometimes more than once a week to come and get the message and get the comfort that you provide.
That is accurate, Dr. Phil. We feel that we are as an essential part of our community as the retail stores, as the Mall of Louisiana that remains open to this moment. So it is in persecution of the faith for us to be asked to close our doors whenever more people are being contacted in those Targets and Walmarts than are in my service. And for them to say those are essential to the community operating, I say that the church is as and more important that we assemble together. We reach out, we minister to people, we feed people. We're the last stable institution in this community today. I guarantee you that.
Well, Pastor Tony, and let me tell you straight up, I very much am a Christian. I've had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ since I was 13 years old. I take this very seriously, so I have a great respect for what you're trying to do. But also, I've read everything that you were kind enough to share with us about your thinking, and I know that you also have a healthy respect for the science involved here, and I know that you don't want to put anybody at risk.
I do not.
At the same time, and you say that the stores are open, and so you're holding your doors open, and two wrongs don't make a right. And what I'm concerned about is the science of this that I've looked very hard at, and trust me, I'm not an immunologist, I'm not an infectious disease expert, and I don't pretend to be, but I have had the privilege of talking to the world's leading experts on this, and the fact of the matter is, this is not a typical virus. This is much more infectious than influenza. It's much more deadly than influenza, and particularly for those that are elderly with underlying respiratory disorders like COPD or asthma, something of that nature. If they get that, particularly in a part of the country where there are not a lot of respirators or ventilators or resources to help them, this could be very, very deadly. Correct. And I'm curious how you feel about that in putting these people in such juxtaposition to one another.
My answer to that is, even if the stores were to close, we want to have the ability to exercise our First Amendment rights, which are your rights as well, but these are our freedoms that we hold dear, that Congress can pass no laws prohibiting or forbidding us to gather and assemble. That is in conviction of ours, and even if the stores were to close, we don't force anybody to come to our services. I'll tell you this, with the instability in my community today, I've ministered to two teenage girls, African American girls, who have attempted suicide this week because their parents have lost their jobs, their schools are closed, they don't get their meals during the day, and these are troublesome times for them. We're ministering to them. We're not a part of the problem.
Well, Pastor,
Yes.
let me ask you this, and I don't know if you ever watched Dr. Phil, but I do my homework, and I've found some things out about you, and what I know about you is you are a highly respected individual in your community. People look up to you, and
Correct.
and they have a lot of trust and faith in you. So I know your reputation is one of being a very responsible individual, and
Yes, sir.
because of that, you say that you certainly have the right of assembly under the Constitution, but with rights also come responsibilities. And
Correct.
I'm wondering if you feel the responsibility in exercising that right to set an example for people to protect themselves and be responsible in that assemblage. And if there's a way to do this where they can have the best of both worlds, where they can get the message, they can get the ministry of the Lord, and at the same time protect themselves as much as they possibly can by respecting social distancing, by using the technology of Facebook, and presenting the sermons and the message over the internet, doing a conglomerate of things to get the message out to as many people as possible and yet keep them safe at the same time.
You make an extremely powerful argument, and it's in our favor. The majority of the congregants that I minister to do not have internet. They're impoverished parts of our community, 19 different nationalities, where nobody else goes and ministers. I do not have the ability to reach them other than bringing them to a central point, which is the church house, feeding them, praying for them, preaching to them, encouraging them. Now I stand in solidarity with our law enforcement, governor, and national officials that, Pastor, this virus does not live outside. If you go outside, we will not infringe on your rights to worship at all. And that was very encouraging to me, because I'm not a revolutionary who wants to come against our government. I prayed with someone who had been exposed yesterday. As a minister, as a pastor, I have that duty to pray for them. We believe that we lay hands on the sick and people can recover, and that is yes.
There are some ways that we can do this with safety, and there's a big point that I agree with you on, and we have to take a break. When we come back, I want to tell you where you and I intersect. I asked Pastor Tony to join me from Zoom from his church in Louisiana, where he says police officers recently told him that he violated the governor's current edict of no more than 50 people allowed to gather during the coronavirus pandemic. Pastor Tony says that won't stop him from ministering to people, and plans to hold his usual Sunday service where he expects over 1,000 worshipers. Now, just before the break, I said there were some things that he and I agree about, and where it is that he and I agree is that I have said that I think this virus is very dangerous. I think it's very contagious. I think it's very deadly. But I've also said that I believe that we are going to have as much devastation and maybe as many deaths from stress and suicide and depression and reactions to the economic collapse, the disintegration of families from pressure, all the things of people losing their wherewithal, mothers and fathers feeling like they can't take care of their families, all because of the fallout from this virus. And people need help with that. They need support. They need to be ministered to, which is one of the reasons that I'm here in my kitchen when I've been told that the show needs to go on hiatus because we can't bring crew in, and we certainly can't have audiences, and we can't have crew in. So I'm by myself in my kitchen with no crew whatsoever. Everybody is working from their home because I want to deliver as much help as I can. So, Pastor Tony, I agree with you that we can't just abandon the people that we have relying on us during this difficult time. But I'm trying to figure out a way to do it where I don't put my crew in jeopardy. I don't put viewers and audience in jeopardy. I'm trying to do it where I use technology as much as I can. But you have you have a sector of the population that doesn't have a lot of these tools that you could reach them with, and that's a problem for you, right?
That is an extreme problem in my community. We're not in wealthy church affiliation by any means. And I'll tell you this, Dr. Field, there's, as informed as we are about COVID-19, there are people that I've reached out to yesterday who don't even know there's a scare in our nation.
Right.
They don't even know there's an pandemic going on. So there's a lot of underinformed people. Why can we not, as a nation, come to terms on what needs to happen? Because I can go across a border a few hours in every direction. There are people assembling where restaurants are open, but in my state, the restaurant owners in my church, their doors are closed. Another week, they will lose everything that they've worked for years.
Well, let me say though, listen, you just have to look what's happening in Italy. You have to look at what's happening in China. You have to look at what's happening throughout Europe right now to know that it's just where you get into the curve as to where this virus is right now. And I wonder if you could even do some things like screen people that are coming in. I know if one of the first, the infectious disease experts and immunologists are telling me that one of the first symptoms of this disease is a spike in temperature. And you can have the disease for a short period of time without symptoms, but an early sign is a spike in temperature. And if those people can be sorted to a different section of the church where they're not with people that aren't infected, if there are things you can do to try to at least separate those that are infected from those who are not, you might be able to save some people. Because if you have elderly people that get infected, listen, I do believe in the power of the Lord, but I'm one of those people that believes pray to God but row for the shore. He gave us arms and he gave us oars. We got to help ourselves as well.
That's so powerful of a point, Dr. Field, because I have nurses in my church, dental workers who have no jobs right now because their offices are closed, evidently. We're taking the precautionary measures in the quote-unquote buzz term now, social distancing. And if I have a medical professional that wants to come here, because we are proceeding with our service, having temperature gun, check people's temperatures, and help me instead of fighting me. Help me, because we're not a part of the problem. We're the cure to the problem. Again, if somebody has a temperature, let's put them to the side. Let's test them, because people are going to be here. Why not medical professionals help me? I'm already, after the president's live address to the nation yesterday, when the Surgeon General stated that there is an blood shortage, I called our blood bank. She called me back within minutes and said, Pastor, we are extremely low. We would love to come. And there's an part of my sanctuary, 2,000 square foot area where they are going to set up and have a blood drive on my facility Sunday morning. Isn't that something?
Well, it is, and I know that you plan to bus in children, and
yes, sir.
You may come into conflict with the National Guard, and I hope that doesn't happen, and I absolutely know that your heart is in the right place, and you're asking for people to help you, not fight you with this. And I
Correct.
know that your church feeds a lot of people. I know that you minister to a lot of people, and I don't think you're trying to be reckless in any way whatsoever. And
No, sir.
I really hope that people will hear what is being said here, and that they will step up and try to help you find a way to safely minister to these people with the Lord's message and keep people safe at the same time, because
Yes.
I believe your heart's in the right place, and if there's a way to segregate those out and keep everybody safe, then we'll hopefully do that. So, the question is Pastor Tony prepared to be physically removed from a worship service the next time officials intervene? I guess we'll find out. So I hope that's not the case. We'll be right back. I invited Pastor Tony to join me via Zoom. Despite having his state banning all gatherings over 50 people due to the coronavirus pandemic, he says he will continue to hold his usual Sunday service, which is expected to attract over 1,000 worshipers. Now, I've talked to the pastor about alternative ways of delivering his message, but he does not have an affluent congregation, and they don't have computers. He can't deliver a FaceTime message, and some of them are rather isolated in Louisiana and didn't even know that there was a pandemic moving through the country and around the world right now. So they're rather isolated, and I can tell you, being from the South, the church is oftentimes the center of the community, the center of the family, and this is where people go. This is their life. And we talked to an internet individual before, Ava, and Pastor Tony, you have a very different attitude than that young lady did. You don't believe that this is a made-up pandemic. You don't believe that this is some conspiracy. You very much respect that this is a very real health challenge right now for people, correct?
Yes, sir. We are in agreement with that. Dr. Field, I have constitutional lawyers that worshiped with me Tuesday night, who will be here Sunday morning as well, who are just as passionate about us continuing with our service for our First Amendment rights.
But some of your parishioners were actually suspended from their jobs because they attended this large gathering, correct?
They were in my service. That live stream video got out. When they went into work the next morning, they were asked to go home without pay. Their argument was, everybody in here was also at the store yesterday, at the gym yesterday. Why am I being singled out? That, my friends, is a persecution for the faith. Send everybody home, then we don't have a double standard. There's no problem. But to single someone out because they came to church, who were exposed to as many people as you were in that target, don't be afraid of that cough. That is discrimination, and we have convictions, Dr. Field. The pressure of our friends, the pressure of our family, the threat of a lawsuit, the threat of imprisonment, and as each of the 11 of the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ died martyr's death will not separate us from our conviction of congregating, assembling together.
Well, Pastor, I hope
yes,
that cough is not prophetic. And let me ask you this: if you were diagnosed with coronavirus, would you continue to meet with your parishioners if you knew you had this highly contagious virus, COVID-19? Would you continue to meet with your parishioners?
I don't say that I would. I'm happy to be tested. I have a strong immune system. I've never spent a day in the hospital in my life. I'm happy to be tested. People are welcome to come here and test us. But that's a great point. I'm not going to endanger anyone, but I do expect our services to continue with others who will fill my shoes until this storm passes by, so to speak, if that were to happen.
Well, we're out of time, and I want to thank you for discussing this with me. I know that you're a very well respected leader in the community, and I appreciate you having this conversation. And you said if they send everybody home, then okay, just don't discriminate. That's
Correct.
what's happened in California, and I think that's what's getting ready to happen in Louisiana. So I don't think you're going to have a debate about this. We're locked down here, and we can't go anywhere. We're a shelter at home in
Can I
California,
interject, Dr.
and
Phil?
I think it's going to happen real soon. I'll give you just a few seconds, then we're out of time. Go ahead. You have the last word.
Dr. Phil, the cannabis retailers in California remain open, yet you are quarantined and CBS studios have evidently closed, which is why y'all are at home. That, my friend, is in violation of yours and everybody in California who are my minister friend rights. They cannot worship today, but these mind-altering chemical sellers can still operate. That's my last word.
All right. Well, I hear what you say, and I just need to say I appreciate you talking to me, and you've been very open and straightforward about this. And God bless you, and I wish you the best.
God bless you, friend. Keep us in prayer. We're praying for you.
We'll be right back.